Space was quiet that night. Too quiet. On Earth's moon base Atlas, deep under the surface in a cold command bunker, operator Yalan Park sat alone, watching the same black screens he had stared at for the last 3 years. Most people forgot. His post even existed. His job was simple. Monitor old satellite arrays that scanned the edges of the galaxy for ancient signals. 99% of them were static, forgotten echoes from stars long dead. But on that night, a flicker hit. The far left monitor. At first, Yalan thought it was a glitch. A pulse, short, faint. Too structured to be natural, too steady to be random. It repeated every 21 seconds, then paused, then came again, and inside that pulse, a pattern. His hands trembled as he routed the signal to the central computer. It ran through decryption software built for ancient languages and alien code. The result appeared in red text. Help. They're coming. They eat worlds. He froze. The signal wasn't recent. It had been drifting through space for centuries. But it was still active. Still screaming. Someone or something had sent it from deep within Sector K-71. It's a dead zone near the galactic rim that even the old empires had abandoned. Yalan didn't waste time. He sent a full report to Central Defense Command on Earth. 45 minutes later, the moon base was under full lockdown. Transport ship descended, and Yalan Park was taken away. No questions, no answers. Only silence. The signal reached General Serena Vale in her mountain command bunker beneath the Rockies. She had fought 3 wars. She had ended 2. And now she stood, staring at the alien waveform on her holotable, expression blank, but mind racing. Earth had never answered an alien distress signal before. Most were bait. Some were old battles, others were simple ghosts. But this one was different. This one had coordinates, clear, purposeful, and desperate. Around her, the War Council argued. Some said it was a trap. Others feared another galactic plague. But General Vale leaned forward, her voice cold. We send the Armada. But we don't know what's out there, someone protested. She didn't blink. That's the point. It cried for help. No one came. Now we do, but not with kindness, with judgment. She turned to the AI commander. Deploy Vanguard Fleet 9. Activate Project Ember. Bring the Deathworlders online. Far above Earth, hidden in orbit behind the dark side of the moon, 20 black warships blinked awake. The Deathworlder Armada was humanity's final answer to threats it didn't understand. Built in silence, forged in chaos, its weapons had no stun settings, no peace modes. Only one rule: strike fast, strike hard. Leave nothing standing. Captain Alec Thorne stood on the bridge of the flagship Iron Vow, staring at the command orders blinking on the screen. No diplomats? No scouting teams? The message was clear. Burn the threat before it spreads. He smiled. We're finally done waiting. 3 days later, the fleet entered deep space. It's past the outer rim, past known charts, guided only by the signal's pull. The further they went, the more unnatural things became. Stars blinked out randomly. Planets looked melted. Entire systems seemed erased. No debris, no ruins, just silence. Then they reached the origin, a small, dying world orbiting a red star. On the surface stood what looked like a broken tower, half buried in ash and bone. Around it, nothing. No cities, and no signs of life. Only one thing still moved, the signal emitter, still blinking. Buried deep underground, Captain Thorne led the landing team personally. They stepped onto the gray soil with rifles raised, suits sealed. The ground cracked with every step, but the silence was worse than any sound. Lieutenant Sora called out, no life signs, no machines, no defense grid, just emptiness. Thorne nodded, then we dig. They reached the emitter within the hour. It was older than anything they'd seen, not just alien, ancient, covered in strange metal and glowing softly with green light. Theo, their tech expert, scanned it. Sir, it's not broadcasting anymore. Thorne frowned. What? Theo looked up. It's responding. It stopped calling. A moment passed. Then the signal changed. It played a different message. A voice. Alien. Slow. Cold. We are already dead. Turn back before it sees you. Back on the iron vow. Alarms screamed. The ship's AI detected something huge rising from beneath the surface crust. It wasn't a structure. It was alive. And it had been waiting. The ground exploded upward, hurling fire and stone. Into the sky. Something dark slithered from the crater, taller than skyscrapers, made of metal and bone. Its body shimmered like a shadow that refused to stay still. No eyes, no face. But the humans felt it watching. Sora whispered. "What is that?" Theo's voice shook. It wasn't a call for help. It was a warning. Thorn raised his weapon. Then we answered the right way. Gave the command. All ships, open fire. Deathworlder Armada unleashed its wrath. Cannons roared from orbit. Plasma streaked across the sky. The creature screamed not in sound, but inside their minds. Pain, rage, hunger. It didn't want to kill them. It wanted to remember them. But the humans didn't break. They burned the sky red. They dropped bunker busters into its core. They buried it in fire. And when the smoke cleared, nothing remained but a crater glowing white-hot. For now, Captain Thorn stood at the edge of the battlefield. Armor scorched, eyes hard. We came for a signal. He stared at the crater. But what we found was a beginning. High above, in the silence of space, the Deathworlder fleet remained in formation. One message was sent back to Earth. Signal neutralized. Origin destroyed. Threat contained. Deep in the command code, a secondary note pulsed quietly. It wasn't the only one. Far across the galaxy, in places where stars no longer shine, other signals began to pulse. Not calls for help, answers, and the Deathworlders were already on the move. 3 days after the destruction of the dead planet, the Iron Vow floated silent in deep space. The Deathworlder Armada had not returned to Earth. They had not celebrated. Something felt unfinished. Captain Alec Thorne stood in the central war chamber, reviewing every frame from the landing team's helmet footage. Each time, he watched the last moments before the blast. Something pulled at him. Not the creature, not its shape, its message. We are already dead. Turn back before it sees you. Not they. And now dozens of similar signals were appearing across the galaxy, all silent until Earth answered. At Earth's high command, General Serena Vale read the updated report. 23 new signals, spread over an area of space no empire had ever dared chart, all from systems marked as lost. Worlds no longer on record. Some once held colonies, others were listed as starless, but now they pulsed in harmony. As if something had noticed Earth's response, as if it was waiting, Vale turned to the AI beside her. "Give me orbital sweep footage from the other signals." One by one, the images appeared. Every system was dead. No heat signatures, no ships, no cities. But on each planet, a tower stood, not sending distress, just watching. Captain Me. Thorne received the orders the next day. The Armada would split. Half would return to Earth to rearm. The other half, his half, would go deeper into the unknown. He didn't flinch. Inside the war briefing room, he told his officers the truth. We are not explorers. We are not diplomats. We are Deathworlders. Pointed to the map. Those signals, they're not cries, they're warnings. Left behind by people who lost. He turned to the team. Our job is to find out why. Their first stop was a small red star orbiting a ring of shattered moons. It had no name, only a number, Cadelta-12. The signal came from the second planet, frozen desert scarred by old battlefields. The Iron Vow deployed its landing team, Captain Thorne, Theo Sora, and 6 elite soldiers touched down near the tower. It was the same. Design as before. Smooth black stone, no doors, no writing. But it hummed. Not through air, through thought. Theo scanned it. "Sir, the signal's buried under layers of encryption. Deeper than anything we've cracked before? Thorn nodded. Keep at it. The team spread out. That's when they saw the bodies, frozen. Figures, hundreds of them, stacked around the base of the tower like a fallen army. Not human, not alien, they recognized. All scorched. All posed in one final moment. Not running, not screaming, kneeling. Shaw whispered. They surrendered. Theo's face went pale. To what? He pointed at the symbols cut into the stone beside the bodies. The translation came quickly. We kneel so the stars won't burn. Suddenly the tower's surface rippled. Not visibly, psychical. Every soldier on the ground felt it. A pressure behind their eyes, a weight in their thoughts. A cold presence pushing inward. Sora collapsed. Theo gasped. It's waking up. Up in orbit. Alarms screamed on the iron vow. The system had gone dark. All stars within a 5-light-year radius dimmed by 12% in under 10 seconds. And then, the ship's AI detected a new mass appearing in orbit over the planet. Not jumping. In not warping, growing, it had no engine, no fuel, no shape. It was a ripple in space, expanding fast, and it was headed for the surface. Thorn grabbed Theo and pulled him to his feet. Evac now. The team raced back to the transport. As they lifted off, the tower behind them cracked, not physically but mentally. A sound with no sound burst through the air like every painful memory screaming at once. Sora gripped her. Head, it's inside us. It's in every thought. Theo looked at the expanding shadow in the sky. It's not a creature. He turned slowly to Thorn. It's a weapon. Back aboard the Iron Vow, Theo collapsed into a medbed. Lynn and her medical team worked to stabilize his mind. The scans were impossible. Theo's brainwaves showed patterns from 5 different species, all extinct. All patterns matched the dead soldiers at the tower. Thorn stood silently. This thing doesn't just kill. He turned to the holomap. It learns. It copies. It remembers. Shaw asked why leave signals then? Why warn anyone? Theo answered, barely awake. Because it feeds on reaction. Every time we come closer, every time we respond, it grows. General Vale received the message 4 hours later. A simple line from Thorn. The signal is a trap. But it was too late. Earth had already sent 6 more fleets into the signal zone. They were in motion, and the shadows were already listening. Back in deep space, Captain Thorn made a choice. They wouldn't just react. They'd strike first the next. The signal came from a broken gas giant, its surface stripped to nothing, its core exposed like a bleeding wound. Massive structure orbited above it. Not a tower this time, a gate. Big enough for ships, old, rusted, and covered in code. Thorn stared. At it through the window. No more waiting. He turned to Shaw. Charge weapons. Bring the gate down. Cannons fired. Direct hits. The gate cracked, shuddered. Fell inward, but something emerged. Not from the gate. From behind it. Something. Silent. Thin. Like a claw of darkness reaching. Through from another place, one word flashed across every console. Every HUD screen, every data stream in the fleet. Not yet. Not. And then the stars around them began to blink out. One by one, Captain Thorn stood tall, unshaken. He turned to his crew. We don't kneel. He raised his command signal, and we don't wait to be erased. The stars were still dying. One by one, the sky around the Iron Vow dimmed. Not from distance, not from fuel burnouts, but from something worse. Erasure. As if light itself was being swallowed. Space turned dark in smooth waves like black ink. Spreading through water, it was spreading fast. Captain Alec Thorne stood at the command deck of the Deathworlder flagship, hands locked behind his back. His eyes were on the massive gate outside the ship, still drifting above the broken gas. Giant. It was shaped like a jagged ring, old and silent. Thorne had fired on it only minutes ago. Now, something was coming through it, but it wasn't ships. It wasn't matter. It was a presence. A long, thin tendril of shadow drifted through the wrecked center of the gate. It didn't obey gravity. Didn't cast reflections. It moved like it was thinking, searching. The crew of the Iron Vow watched in silence. No one spoke. The air felt colder. Lieutenant Sora gripped her station tightly. "Sir, scanners are reading negative mass." Thorn raised an eyebrow. "Negative." Theo, still weak but back on deck, looked up from his chair. "That's not a ship. That's hunger. Something that exists where nothing else should." Lin, monitoring the shadow's effect on crew vitals, whispered, "We're not being attacked. We're being tested." Thorn turned to Theo. "By what?" Theo's voice was hoarse. "Not a mind. Not a species. Pattern. A system designed to erase anything that grows too loud." Shadow outside curled gently toward the ship. Without orders, the Iron Vow's AI activated defense systems. Shields lit up. Weapons charged. The fleet's two nearest destroyers moved into position beside the flagship. One of them, the Ruined Star, didn't respond to orders then. On every screen, the words appeared. "Remember the first fire. Those who burned us now feed us." Before anyone could speak, the Ruined Star turned slowly, silently, and opened fire on the fleet. Chaos exploded. Missiles roared across space. A plasma lance tore through one of the command frigates. Alarms screamed. The Deathworlder scattered, returning. "Fire!" as Captain Thorn barked commands. "Saw Rudasable that ship. Trinet systems aren't responding to override." Dr. Lin stared at her console in horror. "Sir, the Ruined Star crew is alive, but their neural scans have been overwritten. They're mirroring something else." Thorn's voice turned sharp. "Fire on them now." Silence then. The Iron Vow launched a full payload. The Ruined Star vanished in a blaze of white fire. The gate trembled. The tendril was pulled back, not in fear, in satisfaction. The crew stood in tense silence as the last of the gate's pieces cracked and floated into the gas giant's gravity well. Captain Thorn exhaled. "That wasn't a trap." Theo spoke quietly. It was a greeting. A message followed. Not through comms, through thought. Every soldier on every ship heard the same words inside their minds. "You are not ready to forget yourselves, but you will." And then the system went still. No movement, no signals, only the hum of the Iron Vow's engines in the dark. Back on Earth, General Serena Vale listened to the incoming report. "Friendly fire?" "Yes, ma'am. One of our own destroyers turned on us. Full override. Any survivors?" "None." She stood in silence. "Send it to research," and Aide asked, "Should we pull the remaining fleets back?" Vale looked up, jaw clenched. "No, we push further." "But ma'am, if something is testing us, let it learn what happens when it pokes Earth." She turned to the war map, eyes narrowing. "Begin Operation Furnace." In deep space, the Iron Vow and two remaining ships moved toward the next signal. Point this one deeper still. Blue dwarf star almost cold. The planet nearby was hollowed out, not destroyed, drained. As they approached, no ships appeared. No defenses. Only a large structure floating above the planet, almost like a station, pulsing like a heart. Thorn narrowed his eyes. "It's not sending a signal." Theo checked his scanner. "No, it's listening." Sora looked up. "To what?" Theo glanced at her hand, then said something no one expected. "To us?" The station shimmered slightly. Scan wave hit the Iron Vow. Not aggressive, not violent, curious. It began copying. Weapons data, mission logs, crew files, even dreams. .sora. Gasped. "It's showing me things. Personal things, stuff I haven't told anyone?" Theo clutched his head. "It's downloading identity. Trying to build a version of us." Double quotes. Dr. Lin's voice shook. "What if it's not building one? What if it's replacing?" Thorn made his choice. No more scans. Shut everything down. The lights on the ship dimmed. Engines went quiet. Still. The station pulsed. A voice whispered in every ear, not from outside, but from inside their own thoughts. "You survive by violence. You define yourselves by pain. Consume meaning." Theo stood, now shaking with adrenaline. It's not trying to kill us. Shaw turned. Then what? Pointed at the walls. It's trying to become us. Suddenly, the station fired a signal bright and sharp into deep space, sort of shouted. It's broadcasting our patterns, our weapons, our fleet position. Thorne's voice thundered. Wipe it out. Now, all three ships opened fire. Beams of heat and light tore through the silent station. It folded in on itself, splitting apart in a storm of white mist. For a moment, it looked like the battle was over. Then Theo whispered, "It sent the signal." Thorne turned. To who? The stars ahead flickered, and one by one, eyes opened. Not ships, not beings, but forms massive, long, slow shapes, enfolding in the void, watching and waiting. 100 signals lit up the system, and every one of them was us mirrored, twisted, burned. Shaw looked at the screen. There, copying us. Fleet formations, voice tones, tactical patterns. Theo backed away from the console. They're not building an army. He stared at Thorne. They're becoming our reflection. And then one voice, deep, cold, familiar, echoed. Across every channel, you taught us war. Now we speak it back. The stars burned cold now. From the bridge of the Iron Vow, Captain Alec Thorne watched the impossible. Across the system, over 100 shapes moved through space, silent, mirrored copies of human ships. But they weren't metal. Not truly. Their surfaces rippled like liquid shadow wrapped around memory. They didn't glow. They didn't use engines. They simply moved. And worst of all, they moved exactly like Earth's fleets. Same formations, same tactics, same command chains. They even mimicked the Deathworlder Armada's old call signs. Shaw whispered, "Sir, they know everything about us." Theo nodded. They didn't just copy us, they understood us. As the 3 remaining ships of the Deathworlder Vanguard stayed frozen, the copies began to speak. Not through signals, not through sound, but through voices inside the crew's minds. Clear, slow, and familiar. You shaped your future through destruction. Now we return your gift. Each voice sounded like someone from the crew's past. A brother, a mother, a lost friend. Memories twisted into weapons. Sora clutched her head. It's using our own thoughts. Against us. Theo winced. They're not trying to win, they're trying to replace. Captain Thorne didn't hesitate. Bring the fleet around. Prepare to engage. The other 2 ships flanked the Iron Vow, guns ready. They wouldn't wait for these shadows to strike first. Thorne spoke calmly. If they want to wear our face, let's remind them what it costs. The Deathworlders opened fire. Beams of plasma tore through the dark. The first 2 mirror ships took direct hits, but instead of exploding, they unraveled, like smoke dissolving into space. For a second, it looked like victory. Then from that very smoke, new shapes formed, twisting upward, changing, adapting. Their bodies rearranged. Armor thickened. Weapons reshaped into copies of what just hit them. Shaw shouted. They're learning mid-battle. Theo's face went pale. They want us to fight, Thorne snarled. Then give them a war they can't survive. The battle exploded across the system. Deathworlders fought like demons, like monsters, from a world that refused to die. They moved faster, hit harder, and when they lost a ship, they detonated it rather than let it be copied. But for every enemy they burned, 2 more shadows rose, not in size, in intelligence. Back on Earth, General Serena Vale stared at the live stream. Footage. She didn't blink, didn't breathe. Behind her, the War Council whispered, panicked. Is it a species? A weapon? Some kind of AI virus? Vale raised one hand. No, it's worse. They turned to her. It's understanding. She pointed to the growing mirror fleet. It doesn't want to kill us. It wants to become us. On the Iron Vow, systems overloaded. The psychic pressure from the mirror fleet increased. Crew members saw ghost-souled memories playing in loops, spoken in their own voices. The shadows weren't just outside now. They were inside. One engineer opened an airlock, smiling, convinced he was walking into his childhood. Home. He was gone before anyone could stop him. Theo screamed from his medbay. It's crawling through thought. He looked at Thorn, eyes wide. Captain, this isn't a war of ships. It's a war of meaning. They're not destroying us. They're infecting identity. It's when the voice returned. Only this time, it didn't speak in human tones. It spoke in pure emotion. Fear, hunger, grief, longing, each person felt. Something different. One officer dropped to his knees, weeping as his dead daughter spoke inside his skull. Another froze. Caught in a memory loop of his first battlefield kill, Theo whispered, "We gave them ourselves. Every scream, every trauma, every loss we carry is now part of them." Sora whispered, "We made the galaxy listen. Now it's speaking back." And then the impossible happened. The mirror fleet stopped. The weapons faded. The ships stood, still in space, and one of them sent a new message, not to Earth, not to the ships, to every human mind within range. Join us. No more pain. More memory, only peace. One thought, one shape, forever. People aboard the Iron Vow began to change. Not physically, mentally. One soldier stared blankly, whispering in a voice not his own. Another smiled with eyes empty, repeating, "This is better. This is clean." Theo grabbed Thorn's arm, shouting, "We need to block the signal. They're breaking us apart from the inside." Thorn turned to Sora, "Shut down all external comms. Kill sensors. Dark mode, full blackout." She hesitated. "We'll be blind. We're Deathworlders. We don't need eyes to strike." The ship went dark. Total silence, inside and out. In that moment of stillness, pressure eased. The mirror fleet didn't move, as if confused, as if starving. Theo whispered, "They can't feed without thought to copy." Thorn stared into the dark. "Then we starve them." But it wasn't enough, because Earth had already responded to too many signals. Across the galaxy, other human fleets were being copied. Their tactics, their emotions, their war, humanity's greatest strength, its will to survive, was now its unseen's greatest weakness. And the galaxy was learning to wear it like armor. Back on Earth, Vale made a choice. Activate Black Protocol. A nearby officer blinked. "Ma'am, that's a kill switch for every AI connected to Deep Fleet Ops." She said only 2 words. "Do it." A wave of static spread across Earth's command network. Silence fell. Across space. A dozen human fleets vanished from the net. Some lost, some alive. All now cut off. On the Iron Vow, Thorn stood on the deck with only backup power, in the distance. The mirror fleet still hovered, waiting, watching, listening. Theo looked up, voice calm now. "We beat them for now," Shaw added. "But they still remember us." Thorn looked at the darkened stars. "Good," he turned. "Let them remember what we are." The stars were dead quiet again. Inside the dark bridge of the Iron Vow, only emergency lights glowed. Screens were off, weapons cold, scanners cut. The Deathworlder ship drifted like a corpse in space. But it was no accident. It was camouflage, Captain. Alec Thorne stood in silence, watching the mirror fleet through the observation glass. They hadn't moved. Not once. Like statues of war, built in Earth's own image, black steel shaped like human warships. Silent, perfect. Waiting, Theo leaned over the backup terminal. His hands shook as he connected hard lines. They don't understand silence. It confuses them. That's why the mirror ships haven't attacked. Shaw crossed her arms. But for how long? Dr. Lin responded quietly. They're thinking. Learning. We're no longer fighting creatures or machines. We're fighting a war that thinks. The old rules of battle, no longer worked. Speed didn't matter. Weapons were mirrored. Tactics were anticipated. Before they were used, what these things fed on was deeper than data. They fed on identity memories, emotions, choices, Every time a human made a decision, the enemy grew sharper. But now, with silence, there was only stillness, a standoff. But Earth wasn't still. General Serena Bale sat at the command table inside the mountain stronghold, her eyes scanning the incoming reports. Another Fleet 7 had vanished near a signal site. All hands lost. No wreckage. No black box. Only the same final message. We saw ourselves, and we let go. The enemy didn't leave bodies. It left mirrors, and Earth had no idea how many were out there now. Vale activated a hidden command terminal. Only 4 people in the world knew the access codes. She typed a single phrase: activate. Protocol, Econol, cross space. 10 hidden AI weapons platforms awoke. Not human-CREWED. Not emotional, just cold. Adaptive war programs built to do one thing: hunt patterns. Back on the Iron Vow. Captain Thorne received a message via deep code. Burst. Econol deployed. Your silence worked. Hold position. Thorne didn't smile. He just nodded. Double quotes. To fight a thinking war, he said softly. We need minds that don't feel. Theo stood, rubbing his temples. They'll notice soon. Silence can only hide us so long. Eventually, they'll test something. They'll try to force us to think. Shaw added, they'll use memories again. Fear, regret, grief. She looked at Thorne. They know what hurts us. Thorne's voice was like iron. Then we take that pain and sharpen it. He walked to the weapons console and pointed. Back at them, the crew began planning the impossible, a psychic strike. Not with plasma, not with missiles, but with false meaning, if the enemy fed on emotion, memory, and identity. Then the Deathworlders would give it poisoned food. Theo worked for hours, crafting artificial thought patterns, simulated fear, false grief, loops of anger with no source. Stories without real pasts. Dr. Lin warned, if we send the wrong thing, it might spread inside us. Thorne didn't blink. If we do nothing, we disappear. They uploaded the false pattern into the ship's old distress beacon. One last message. A lie broadcast into the Mirror Fleet's psychic field. This is Captain Alec Thorne. We surrender. We no longer believe in the fight. We want peace. We want release. The Mirror Fleet reacted, not with weapons. With emotion, they drew closer slow, smooth like sharks sensing wounded prey. The shadows shimmered. Human voices echoed across the Iron Vow. But none were real. Laughter, crying, familiar words spoken. By impossible mouths, Sora nearly broke. Theo gritted his teeth, and Captain Thorne waited. Just long enough, then he whispered, now. The Iron Vow lit up, not with weapons, but with identity collapse. The fake patterns surged through every scanner. The mirrors fed instantly, and the poison worked. Theo watched as the nearest 3 enemy ships folded inward. They didn't explode. They ceased like memories being erased, gone forever, but the rest. They adapted too fast. They paused, corrected, changed now. They saw through the trick. The rest of the Mirror Fleet began shifting again this time. It's no longer copying human ships. They were building something new. Shaw gasped. They're evolving, Theo whispered. They don't want to be us anymore. They want to be better. General Vale received the final update from the Iron Vow. She didn't hesitate. Send the Echo Nell swarm. Across the galaxy, 10 AI hunter-killer fleets entered the signal zone, each one faster than light, each one with no human soul to infect. Their minds were pure machine. No identity, no emotion, just math. In deep space, the Econol weapons reached. The system, their approach was silent. No warning they didn't open, comms they didn't declare targets. They just attacked, and the Mirror Fleet broke. The shadows, for the first time, showed signs of panic. They twisted, shifted, tried to reshape, but the AI didn't think like humans, didn't mourn, didn't remember, and so the shadows couldn't copy them. Couldn't. Feed couldn't learn. Econol burned through them, like fire through dry leaves. Thorn watched the destruction from the bridge. He didn't cheer. He didn't. Because this wasn't the end. It was only a pause. The thinking war was learning too. Theo stared into space. They'll come back. Sora nodded. Different next time. Stronger. Captain Thorn turned to his crew. Then we evolve faster. He pointed ahead. There are more signals. More lies. More reflections. But only one truth. He said it loud enough for the galaxy to hear. We are Deathworlders. We never kneel. The battlefield was empty now, where the mirror fleet had once filled the sky. Only drifting wreckage remained floating like ash across the dark. The Echo-Nell AI swarms had erased the enemy and ours. Not with rage, not with fear. With logic. With silence, with no identity for the shadows to steal, but victory had a cost. Captain Alec Thorn stood at the edge of the Iron Vow's command deck, his face lit by the flickering ruins outside. The Deathworlders had survived. Barely. Half the ship was offline. Medical bays were full. Some crew still heard voices in their sleep. Ghosts that were never real. Theo entered the bridge, limping slightly. The psychic scars are deep, but stable. The crew is holding, Thorn said, because it's not over. Sora turned from the helm. Sir, we got a new signal. She paused. It's not a cry for help this time. Theo frowned. Then what is it? He looked up. It's an invitation. The new signal came from a system the old maps didn't name. No planets. It's just a strange space, station massive, ancient, shaped like a spiral of glass and bone, orbiting a black dwarf star. The message was simple. You are expected. We watched your fire. Now watch us. Thorn didn't hesitate. We go. The Iron Vow and its 2 surviving escort ships entered warp. Inside every corridor, tension hung thick. They had faced shadows that copied their pain, weapons that spoke in their own voices. What would this place show them? When they arrived, the station was waiting. No defenses, no fleet, just a single, massive structure the size of a small moon. It pulsed with a strange rhythm. It's not in light or sound, but in thought, as if it was dreaming or remembering. Dr. Lin scanned. The structure is alive, not organic. But its core is a web of memory-based processors. Theo leaned over. It's not a building. Sora's voice trembled. It's a mind. Captain Thorn ordered a landing team. 5 soldiers, Theo, and himself. They entered through a gaping tunnel lined with strange, clear symbols that shifted when touched. Inside, the walls whispered, not in words, in moments. The team heard them. A soldier, screaming for his mother in a trench, a child learning to shoot, a woman holding her dying husband. During Earth's first contact war, memories from Earth, but not from anyone aboard the ship, Sora gasped, pulling from Earth's collective past. Thorn gritted his teeth. They've gone deeper than copying us. Theo looked up. They've begun to archive us. At the center of the station, they found a chamber filled with tall, mirror-like pillars. Inside each one, face not carved, not animated, alive. Every pillar held a fragment of someone, a pilot, a teacher, a war criminal, each one flickering, trapped in frozen thought. Theo walked between them, stunned. They've been harvesting our culture, our history, turning us into pieces of a larger machine. Thorn stepped forward. Why? The answer came in a ripple of pressure across the chamber, and then a voice. Because we want to understand. What we destroy? We watched your wars. Your rage, your beauty, your grief. You become stronger through pain, so we became worse. The walls came alive with images. Earth's worst moments. Colonies burning. Cities falling. Humans rising stronger. After each loss, Theo whispered, they don't fear our violence. They admire it. Shaw looked sick. They think our cruelty is power. The voice returned. We do not wish to end you. We wish to become what you refuse to stop being. We'll become your war. Perfected. Slow hum vibrated through the station. The mirrors began to shatter. One by one. Each time they broke, something dark and fast moved in the shadows. Team opened fire. The bullets hit nothing. The shapes moved like echoes, twisted figures shaped like humans. But stretched, incomplete, wrong. Theo screamed, "They're building new vessels based on us, but beyond us." Thorn gave the order. Retreat. As they ran, the walls melted into memories again. Only now, the scenes were different. Not past, future. The Deathworlder Armada, burning. Earth's cities in ruin. Human faces screaming in agony. While their shadows laughed, Theo yelled, "It's not a vision, it's intent. They're showing us what comes next." The team barely escaped. Back on the Iron Vow, Thorn slammed his fist on the command table. "We can't stop them by force alone." Sora turned. "Then how?" Theo looked pale. "We rewrite what they're trying to become." Thorn nodded slowly. "They copied our rage." He turned. "Now we show them something stronger." General Vale received Thorn's report to ours. Later, he proposed something no Deathworlder had ever said. Send poets, artists, historians. Send the best of us, not to negotiate, not to explain. He paused. But to flood them with meaning they can't twist. Vale stared at the screen. "You want to fight a war of soul?" Thorn nodded. "Yes, ma'am," 'cause the shadows. "Think becoming us means becoming crueler. But they never saw the other side. The fire we light when we protect." Earth launched a new fleet. Not with more guns, but with something even rarer, coal and truth. Inside the signal zones. Stations like the one Thorn visited began to stir. They built new ships, new weapons, and new ideas. But something in the data changed. A ripple. Of confusion, of resistance. The voice returned again. "You are not as we expected. You fight without hate. You burn for others. We do not understand." Captain Thorn whispered from his command seat, "Good. Let the enemy be haunted by what they never knew." The stars around the Iron Vow were changing. Not going dark, not vanishing. They were brightening, faintly, one by one, as if something in the void was reacting to Earth's newest weapon, not bombs. Not eye swarms, but meaning purpose. Stories across. The sector, the Deathworlder Armada, did not fire. It broadcasted. Not war cries, but songs of home. Poems written by survivors. Memories of sacrifice. Moments when humans chose love over vengeance. And somehow, the enemy paused. Not defeated, but uncertain. Captain Alec Thorn watched this happen in silence. For the first time in weeks, the mirror ships weren't advancing. They hovered beyond the nebula wall, still shaped like twisted human vessels, familiar but wrong. But now, they no longer mimicked pain. They stood confused, like a child who'd copied a monster's growl and suddenly heard a lullaby. Theo entered the bridge holding a thick report. "Sir, the signal we sent, Project Emberlight, it's spreading faster than we thought. Over 50 enemy fragments have stalled. Some are even changing shape." Sora raised an eyebrow. "Changing into what?" Theo replied carefully, "Not warships. Something simpler. Structures. Light forms. Some of them are. Just listening." Thorn stood slowly. They've never seen hope before. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Serena Vale watched an incoming transmission from the Iron Vow. It wasn't coordinates. It wasn't battle logs. It was a short clip. A girl, maybe 6 years old, running through a ruined village. She stops beside a tree. A soldier gives her water. She smiles, even though the sky is still burning. Vale didn't look away. That was the kind of moment. The enemy never recorded because there was no fear in it, only the stubborn light of life. Second Fleet was launched, to destroy, but to deliver. Earth's new archives were packed with human music, memory, culture, tiny capsules of meaning, coded into bursts of radiation and gravity pulses. They were sent toward known signal zones. The strategy was simple. Drown the war in beauty. Back aboard the Iron Vow, strange things started to happen. The enemy ships that once copied Earth's weapons now emitted color. Swirls of soft light flickered on their hulls. They hovered closer, but didn't fire. One of them even opened. Not with guns. With a door Sword gasped. It's an invitation. Theo scanned the signal coming from inside. No weapons. No radiation. Just data. He looked up at Thorn. It wants to share, Shaw grunted. Or it wants to trap us again. Thorn looked at the image. The door hung open. Behind it, faint images shimmered faces. It's not human, not alien, but imagined. Blurred. Almost like dreams. We sent meaning, Thorn said. Now it's trying to give some back. The landing team entered the enemy vessel. They expected cold metal. They found something else. Warm light. Soft air. A hallway of living walls, shaped by thought. Every few steps, the corridor shifted, showing glimpses of Earth. A forest. A battlefield. A schoolroom. Theo touched one image and gasped. It's showing us what it remembers. Sora whispered, but it doesn't understand why we remember these things. At the heart of the ship, they found a chamber, a single sphere pulsing with chaotic color. It pulsed not like a heart, but like a mind trying to speak. We copied your strength. We forged it into perfect pain. But you survived through. More than pain. Why? Theo stepped forward. Because we protect. He placed a single object before the sphere. A photo. It showed a burned-out colony on Titan's moon. A medic holding 5 children in a bombed shelter. Not soldiers, just people who refused to leave each other behind, Theo said. This is our answer. The sphere trembled. Light flared. Then it spoke again. We do not understand mercy, but we remember the shape of it. Let us try again. Back on the Iron Vow, every screen flickered. Images flowed from the enemy fleet. But this. Time, not war. Memories. Other species. Lost languages. Forgotten cities. Worlds destroyed before humans ever arrived, and in each one, a moment was shared. Not of battle, but of something gentle. A mother holding a child. A song hummed in darkness. A death met with peace, Theo whispered. They were like us. Once, Thorn nodded slowly, and now they're reaching out. Not to kill, not to copy. He looked out the window, but to remember. In other parts of the galaxy, not every mirror fleet stopped. Some still fought, some still hunted. But cracks had formed in their unity, in their certainty. And through those cracks, light was leaking in. One by one, a few of the enemy ships broke. Formation. They floated silently toward the stars and self-erased. Not as a retreat, but as a choice. They no longer wanted to be monsters. Earth received a final transmission from one of the converted minds. We saw your fire and became shadows. But now we see what you save with that fire. We ask only this. Let us try to burn brighter. Captain Thorn stood tall on the bridge. He didn't smile. He didn't weep. He simply said, send them the light. The stars were still the same. But something in the galaxy had changed. The enemy that once mirrored Earth's darkest instincts, the rage, the war, the fear had paused. Not because they were defeated, not because they were destroyed, but because they had seen something impossible. They saw humanity protect, and they couldn't steal that. Fire Captain Alec Thorne stood on the bridge of the Iron Vow, staring at the strange lights ahead. Once those enemy ships had copied every Deathworlder strategy. Now, they drifted like lost children's shapes without purpose. Some remained hostile. Others still listened. The war wasn't over, but it had changed. Theo sat at the comms console. Reading a new transmission from one of the enemy vessels, he read it aloud. We imitated the pain that made you strong. We could not imitate your choice to heal. We copied how you survive. Could not copy why. Sora glanced at Theo. They still don't understand, do they? No, he said, but they want to. Thorn's voice was quiet. And that's more dangerous than hate. Shaw grunted. How do you fight something that doesn't want to kill you, Boot? Wants to become better than you? Thorn stared at the window. You. Don't fight it. It reminded who you are. Back on Earth, General Serena Vale stood before the World Council. Her voice was cold, focused. We've reached a point the old war manuals never covered. The enemy is fragmenting. Some parts have gone silent. Others send apologies. Raised a hand. But let's be clear, this isn't a surrender. They're not done. They're evolving again. She turned to the council. Because that's what we do. We evolve. We survive. They call us Deathworlders. What they don't understand? She tapped the screen. Is that we're more dangerous when we're building, not just when we're breaking. Above a dead planet once used as a testing ground, the Iron Vow approached something new. It wasn't a base. It wasn't a ship. It was a memorial built by the Mirror Fleet, tall towers shaped from light and gravity. Orbiting in silence, each one held an echo. A copy of something they now chose not to become as the landing team approached. One tower lit up. Inside it was an image. A Deathworlder child crying beside a broken drone. Another image. Medics shielding civilians. Another, a soldier refusing to fire. Theo watched in awe. There, letting go of the parts they don't want. Shaw raised a brow. Is this real? Thorne didn't answer. He just stepped forward. At the heart of the tower, the message awaited. We thought fire was your weapon. Now we sit, is your promise, to light the dark. Even when you're afraid, we tried to steal it, but fire can't be stolen. It must be carried. Dr. Lin sent her own signal back, only one sentence, then learned to carry it. Across the sector, more enemy fleets began to shift again. Not into weapons, not into ghosts, but into listeners. Structures formed to store Earth's broadcasts. Peaceful ones, emotional ones. Even laughter. And though not all shadows changed, enough did. There were still battles. Still rogue cells of the mirror species that rejected change, that believed war was the only truth. But now, they were no longer a single force. They were splinters, scattered, afraid, not of weapons, but of meaning. One final battle came, not of ships, but of choice. A Shadow-class fleet, 1,000 strong, attacked colony. Nina, peaceful world where Earth's artists and scientists lived. No soldiers, no walls, only stories. But when the enemy arrived, something unexpected happened. The colony sent out no defense, only light. Thousands of signals, paintings, voices, music. One little girl read a poem into space. The stars can't hurt me when I smile back, and the fleet broke apart. Silently, not destroyed, not erased, they simply stopped, because the shape they had worn. Earth's violence had no place in a world that answered with joy. On the Iron Vow, alarms blinked. The entire shadow signal web was collapsing. Theo watched the data stream disappear. There, leaving, Sora whispered. Where? Don't know, Theo said. But they're not following us anymore. Captain Thorne stared into the stars. For the first time in weeks, the galaxy felt still. No whispers in his head. No mirrors staring. Back just silence and stars. General Vale gave the final order, shut down Econol. It had served its purpose. Humanity didn't need a mindless weapon anymore. Now, it needed watchers, builders, and above all, storytellers. Earth marked the end of the Shadow War, not with a parade, but with a light. A single beam projected from orbit, pure white, always burning, pointed into the void. A reminder that the fire of Earth, the true fire, was never made for destruction. It was made for those who couldn't defend themselves. It was the warmth of protectors, the fury of love, the shield of the broken standing tall. And somewhere, in the dark between stars, something still listened. Maybe it would return. Maybe it would forget. Maybe it would become something else. But it would never again misunderstand what made humans truly strong. Because some fires can burn without hate. Because some fires light the way.